Okay, class, so today we are going to continue on with the fugue. We're going to talk about a few more ways that Bach sort of mixes around and expands his melodies, and then we're going to look at an actual fugue and analyze it and see what he did with it. And after that, you're just going to continue on with assignment 3.2, continue analyzing, look for some of these mixed figures, and get a little bit more in depth beyond just finding the subject, counter subject, and answer. So yeah, let's get started. So just as a very quick review, we talked about variants of subjects and answers in an entry, all right? So this is, in an entry, meaning the melody, meaning the subject, and these are ways to mix these around and move them and mold them to be what Bach wants and make them a little bit more interesting. So if you remember, stretto is the overlapping of subjects or answers, right? So the subject starts, and then before the subject is finished, the answer comes in, right? So you're overlapping that fugue melody, right? And that's all it is. It's just the fugue melody being overlapped like a canon, right? The other way that you can expand or change a melody is augmentation, all right? And remember, augmentation, all it is taking one theme, right, your subject, and then expanding it out so that you're either double or tripling the time, the rhythm, right? So the amount of time that you're spending on each note. That's all it is. So it's just an expansion. It's taking the melody that you're using and pulling it out like taffy, expanding it. Now the exact opposite of that is diminution, all right? Oh, and we have transposition as well. I'm sorry, I missed that one. So here, you can see we do have some stretto. So here's your fugue subject, right here. And then the second fugue subject enters, all right there. And so they're overlapping. That's all stretto is. All right, now augmentation, you're either going to double or triple the note value. It's a better way of saying it. So here we've got our subject, right? And then it comes in with triple value. So instead of a quarter note, really what it's supposed to be, because it's going to be this guy. So quarter, you have half note tied to a quarter note, all right? So everything is expanded rather than a quarter note tied to an eighth note, all right? So everything gets doubled. Now the exact opposite of this is diminution. So you're taking something that's expanded and you're compacting it. So instead of expanding the note value, double and tripling it, you're going to half the note value, all right? You can half, I think you could third it if you really want to, or quarter it, but just know that the values are reduced, and that's all that's different. All right? So you can see in this Bach fugue, here's the subject in half notes, and then he puts it in quarter notes. So that's called diminution. That's all it is. Easy, 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 very clear. Now, there's another way that you can change a melody, all right? So here, this entire thing is a melody, and this is called retrograde. So what retrograde is going to do, it's going to misdemeanor Elliot it and flip it and reverse it. So watch this. Be prepared to have your mind blown right now. This is the crab canon. This is one of the pieces where people say, holy cow, Bach is a complete and utter genius. So this is, just so you know, this is tenor clef, or some sort of alto clef, tenor clef. This line right here is middle C. All right, so just know that that's middle C. So we've got this theme. Ba da 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 dee do 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 do. Now, if you take this and flip the book around, guess what happens? the whole thing, you can play it exactly the same, only now it's backwards. All right? So it goes the opposite direction. So that's retrograde. It's literally taking the whole melody and flipping it around and reversing it. You see a little bit more clearly an example here. All right, so here's the first part of the crab canon, right? Sorry, E flat. All right? So what he's doing with the crab canon, and there's a video on this, and it's stuck onto a Mobius strip so you can see how it just goes on and on, where basically the way it's played is the right hand starts with this line, right, and it plays this whole thing, and then the left hand starts with this line and joins and plays it against the opposite one. So if you check out the video of the crab canon that I put on there, you can hear it in action and see it happening as it's happening, as it's going. And it is so cool how it lines up. Trust me, you need to watch it. Your mind will explode when you see it. But this is the classic example of retrograde. All right, this is probably the most complex example of retrograde ever written, but a less complex example of that, right, would be a simple melody being flipped upside down and reversed. It actually happens in our fugue, and I'll show you where it goes. So the other way that we can have a change of melody a little bit is melodic inversion, and that's a little bit different than retrograde. So it's not playing the whole piece in reverse, right? So if we were to play the crab canon, for example, this little theme right here in reverse, what you would hear is going forwards, it would be all right? Whereas if we play it retrograde, it's going to sound like this. So it's going to go backwards. So it's going to be like that, okay? So it'd be the exact reverse. Sorry for screwing that up. So here again, here it is normal. Right? Now, if we were to go the other way, it would go like this. So that's true retrograde. Now, melodic inversion is going to go intervallically, all right? And it's going to go in the opposite direction. So in this case, we go up a major third, right? And then up another major third, down a major second, down a minor second, up a major second, right? So it goes major third, major third, minor third, then you go down a major second, minor second, and then back up a minor second, up a major second. You get what I mean, so stepwise. So it's going to be exact intervallic thing. Now the reverse of that, the inversion, is going to be the opposite. So this one goes up, this one's going to go down a major third, and then down a minor third, right? Whereas this one goes up. And then we're going to go up a major second, whereas this one's going to go down. And then we go up a minor second, right? Whereas this one goes down. And then we go down another minor second, whereas this one's going to go up. Okay, so you just do the exact mirror image of this. as opposed to both the reverse and the opposite. So in this case, the original is going to sound like this. So. Sorry. Okay? Whereas the opposite, the inversion, is going to sound like this. So you go. Okay? So it's just going to be the opposite. Whereas retrograde, you play it both upside down and backwards. All right, so a little bit, we talked about the beginning of the fugue, which introduces, right, it's the first period, and it introduces the subject, the counter subject, and the answer, right? And we go through that. Sometimes there's a bridge, and you'll add another voice. And then we get into a series, the second part, which is a series of entrances, right? So you've got it all chopped up. And then in the final part of the fugue, there's a return to the tonic key. This is very important. So you stray away from the tonic key as you're in the middle section, and then in the end, you're going to come back. There's usually a restatement of the subject, and this section is sometimes referred to as the recapitulation of a fugue. So you can see fugue form is sort of the beginnings of, if you know anything about sonata allegro form, this is the beginnings of sonata form. Often, a fugue will close with a short section called a coda. So there's a little coda at the end, which its whole point is to emphasize the tonic key. Okay? So now we're going to dive into one of Bach's pieces from the Well-Tempered Clavier. And the Well-Tempered Clavier is a series of 24 pieces written for keyboard instrument. So it could be any keyboard instrument. It could be a harpsichord, the clavichord, something called the pianoforte, which had just been invented pretty recently. The actual piano had not been invented yet at this time, but there was something that was similar called the pianoforte. And it was literally called piano and forte because it could go loud and soft, and that was its big thing. Whereas harpsichord could only play one dynamic, right? And the clavichord could only play one dynamic. The pianoforte was like a big deal. And then the piano just took that ability to play soft and loud and expanded it and made it easier and more extreme. So anyway, so the Well-Tempered Clavier was invented specifically to show off what's called tempered tuning, which is what you get on things like piano and guitar, where you sort of like squeeze the different notes. So if you've got like a G sharp and an A flat, you're going to kind of take the middle of the two, right? And prior to this, they had never really considered this. They used something called mean tone tuning, which is more suited to something like a violin or a cello. So if you want to know more about that, you can research it or ask me. I'm happy to go on and on and on about tempered tuning and non-tempered tuning because violinists and string players are experts at that stuff. But just know that it was written for 24, there are 24 pieces, one for each key to show off that you could play this piano. If you use this type of tuning, you could use any key and not have to retune the whole piano. Because prior to that, with the harpsichord or the clavichord,